SBC Media.
SBC Leaders connects the gambling industry's top-tier operators and associations to share the best ideas, collaborate on solving the biggest issues, and push innovation throughout the betting and gaming industry. If you're an operator and want to join the discussion, visit sbcleaders.com for more information.
The launch of North Carolina sports betting has been a waiting game as the state lottery is working to approve and license interested operators with the hopes of launching in time for March Madness. While launch is still a couple months away, there have been some interesting developments out of the Tar Heel state, though, including some new partnerships and the first foray of Underdog into the sports betting space. On today's episode of iGaming Daily, we'll talk about all the latest happenings in North Carolina, and then we'll take a look at if we have any new contenders in the market now that some of the legislative sessions are underway. I'm Jessica Welman, editor of SBC Americas and Canadian Gaming Business, joined by, I was about to say my senior journalist, Charlie Horner, but Charlie, you have a new job title now, so fill people in what you're going to be doing for the group going forward.
Yeah, I've moved over to our media team, looking after our stable of media clients, working on some of those editorial pieces, which is, a really exciting opportunity, but at the same time, it's sad to be moving away from the day-to-day news on SBC Americas.
We'll nag you and make sure you keep hanging out at our meetings and stuff. You guys will meet him on the pod sooner or later, but Justin Byers is our new senior journalist, and we are very excited to have him on board, even though I will miss Charlie dearly. I'm very excited for you. Congratulations. And we'll keep you on the pod and have you continue. That's how we'll make sure you stay in the know. We'll keep you involved in the podcast discussion of
Yeah, you can't get rid of me that quickly.
Well, you've done a lot of work. You may have done more work on North Carolina so far compared to me. Over the holidays, we did hear the first list of operators that put in their applications to essentially lock up a spot of whatever day one of launch is. And that list was pretty predictable. BetMGM, Bet365, DraftKings, ESPN, BetFanatics, FanDuel. Caesars not on that list, always planned to come in through their tribal affiliation with the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians, who put in an application this week. The big surprise on this list, though, Underdog Fantasy. Charlie, we knew they were going to get into this space, and they kind of had a state in mind. Was this high on your radar of which state they would pick to go in first?
No, it really did catch me by surprise, really, and yeah, Underdog are definitely going to ruffle up a few feathers in North Carolina. I was already quite excited about North Carolina launching because it would really be the first major state launch where we would see ESPN and Fanatics go in at the same time as everyone else. So that was already exciting enough. But for Underdog to go in, given that everything that's happened over the last 6 months or so, it's going to be really intriguing to see A, how the competitors react to that move, and B, how they can build up market share. Are they going to be just, struggling to get 1% to 2%, or are they really going to try and go for, 5% plus? Because if they did manage to get that would be quite an achievement.
Well, for me, what's going to be curious is the product. We've spent the last year talking so much about whether this product that they currently have is fantasy or sportsbook. So if they do have kind of the limitations of fantasy taken off of them, what does an Underdog sportsbook look like? Jeremy Levine has talked a big game. I think he would even say, talked a big game about their tech and their approach to sports betting and the goal to make a sportsbook that feels fundamentally different than the old school sports books. So, how much does that look different from the fantasy product? So I'm curious to see that. I'm curious to see, because Sterl Carpenter is the person in charge of sports betting at North Carolina, kind of on the administrative side. He came from Massachusetts, which, as we remember this time last year, we were doing like 1.5, 3-hour hearings on every operator. So what does vetting Underdog look like? And does all of this stuff from before kind of come in as evaluation of whether they're suitable to come into the state.
Well, yeah, I mean, you mentioned that Carpenter is coming over from the MGC, and those meetings did take a long time, and those commissioners were more than happy to dig into the details. So I would imagine that all of last year's sort of controversies and arguments will spill over into these regulatory meetings, and I'm sure they'll get to the bottom of whether this is a fantasy sports or a sports book, and they've already played down that this is not going to be a fast process. The sports betting committee,
they
said,
reiterated that 10 times.
Do not expect sports betting in January. It's going to be far closer to June than it is to January. We're going to talk a little bit about when we do think it will launch a little bit later. But yeah, this is, I think, the committee will be happy to spill over the details a little bit.
Yeah, the last piece that we are missing, Underdog is the only operator that has yet to announce their market access deal. So to just take a minute and run down kind of the market access deals for the state. This one, by the way, kind of shady the way that it went down, I'll be honest. The original bill was an open market where just online operators could come in and apply. During a summer emergency session, they kind of revisited and shoehorned in something to benefit the sports entities in the state where you need to partner with a sports entity in order to get in. Bet365 is, did I just call it Bet365?
You
Wow.
did. You did.
You can
it's
tell
sacrilege.
that it is, we do these pods at the beginning of my day and Charlie's afternoon. Bet365 is with the Charlotte Hornets. FanDuel and ESPN both, FanDuel's with the PGA Tour, ESPN is with the PGA Tour golf course Quail Ridge. Fanatics hasn't quite confirmed that it'll come in through the hockey team, I believe. And then DraftKings and BetMGM. DraftKings is working with NASCAR more broadly, BetMGM with Charlotte Motor Speedway. Funny aside about the DraftKings deal, this also kind of puts them as the official fantasy operator of NASCAR going forward, which means that the Prize Picks deal that was done with NASCAR in just April of last year is already over. So interesting little side bargaining chip of that one. And then that kind of leaves a couple of options for Underdog that they can still go to. Some of the soccer teams in the state, the Carolina Panthers, I don't believe have a partner yet. So we will see where they land on that one. Charlie, you mentioned it. Let's kind of wrap this up with the governor is pushing for a launch by March Madness. It makes sense. If there is a sport that defines North Carolina, it is college basketball. Based on what you've seen of other states and where we're at right now in the process, do we think North Carolina makes it in time for March Madness, which is generally, the first half of March?
Yeah, so we're looking at sort of 6 to 8 weeks to get everyone licensed and ready to go, fully vetted. Do I think it's realistic? Maybe not. There's a lot of work that goes into these. I guess it is a little bit skewed because I think the one that I paid most attention to last year was Massachusetts because it was just must watch.
That is the outlier,
content.
That is the slowest, longest drawn out version of this that we've ever seen.
Absolutely. It may be, it might not take that long, but I think it might spill over and it might not launch in time for the very beginning of March Madness. But I think if they can get something up and running by the end, then you can still reap the rewards of getting people to come in and bet on maybe the finals. If you're leaving it after March Madness, then you're sort of losing the benefit of your major sporting competition for the year. And, between the end of March and June, there's not too much to get excited about. So what do you think, Jess? Are we looking realistic?
The title game is on April 8th. So that would give them basically a full extra month. Technically March Madness tips off on March 19th. Ideally you want the week before to get some betting in there to fully maximize it. That you're right, that's not the drop dead date. You can still get a lot if you get to the Final Four weekend, and you can get betting on the Final Four, especially if a Carolina team makes it. There's still a lot of benefit there. You're right, though. I'm curious to see. I think Massachusetts is a reasonable comparison because Sterl Carpenter is involved. I don't think you're going to see what we saw in Kentucky, where you just kind of rubber stamp everyone with a conditional license because they're operational in other states, especially because we haven't seen Underdog be operational in the other states. And then the Catawba Nation has also put in for an application. They aren't operational in other states. That it seems doable. It just is a question of, given the pace that we're at now, it would certainly require picking up that pace before we are able to actually hit that date. So
yeah,
we shall see. In the meantime, I'm going to continue. You're not into college basketball. Like, we're just getting into the meat of the season. So in my mind, they've got plenty of time because we've only just started conference games. But you're right. It's 6 to 8 weeks. All right, we'll keep an eye on that and continue to give you updates about North Carolina on SBCAmericas.com. In the meantime, we're going to take a brief pause so that we can shift focus and look at what states might be coming to join North Carolina as regulated sports betting states in 2024.
Brazil, a global economic powerhouse, deeply passionate about sports, and now home to one of the hottest markets in gaming. And we're giving it the full SBC treatment. Join industry leaders, market experts, and all the major players in the country for 3 days of content, exhibition, and epic networking at the first ever SBC Summit Rio.
Welcome back to iGaming Daily. Charlie, we just broke down North Carolina. We should give some notice that Vermont did indeed launch sports betting today, which, 3 operators are live in the state now: FanDuel, DraftKings, Fanatics. They got in via a request for proposals process through the lottery. There were multiple applicants. Some did not get selected. So it'll be an interesting state to keep an eye on. Not the biggest state.
Yeah. I was going to say, congratulations to everyone in Vermont, but
all 14 of you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, people of Vermont. I'm from Kentucky. We're not a big state either, but yeah, I think there's not as much fanfare around it. But good job. You're live. You did it. Okay, so we've got Vermont. When are we going to get another state? That's a much bigger question. We're starting to see bills. In 2024, what states do you think are kind of the ones that you would keep the closest eye on in terms of getting sports betting across the finish line?
You see, whenever I've thought about the likelihood of getting things over the line in 2024, I'm taking a bit more of a pessimistic view. I don't necessarily see lots of movement this year. We saw how difficult it was last year to get some states over the line, and I think there might be a few squabbles here and there which might hinder things. So I'm not too sure where to look. I know we've got a few bills that we're going to talk through, but I don't necessarily see a lot of success in these. How about you? Do you think we're going to see lots of action in 2024?
I think we're going to see lots of bills. The question is if those bills are, transformative. We're legalizing sports betting. We're legalizing online casino. Those, I think if you get 1 or 2, we're going to feel good about things. If I have a state that I think is closer than others, I can't believe we reached this point, but I'm saying Georgia.
Wow.
Georgia dropped a bill that is the first of what is going to be several. If you remember last year, the big issue with Georgia is that some people believe you're going to need a constitutional amendment in order to legally do this, in which case you're going to need to take it to the voters in the fall. Some would like, and sports teams, surprise, surprise, are like, nah, just have the lotto do it. It's fine. The concern with if you take that route, yes, it's easier up front now, but you potentially have someone suing you over the legality of, the bill to begin with, in which case you almost set yourself back further. It's not just that the bill didn't pass. You now have the court saying, like, here's all the things we don't like about it. So SB 172 from Bill Cowser does include a constitutional amendment. It also includes what I think is a fascinating decision that I kind of love, which is, have you heard about this, Charlie? There's 2 tax tiers on this.
Yeah, I was reading the bill this morning, and I was pleasantly surprised about this. I know it's very rare, and we don't see things like this very often, but I kind of like it.
Yeah, so they're taxing most sports bets at 20%, but operators will have to pay a 25% tax rate for parlay bets, prop bets, and live betting, which traditionally tend to be higher hold wagers for the sports book and more profitable than other bets. And that was kind of the mindset behind it, is if you're going to rake in like 30 to 35% hold on parlays, you should pay more for them. It's vaguely consumer protectionist, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's probably a concession to those lawmakers who are potentially a little bit more on the anti-gambling side of things, but may be swayed over by the whole tax revenue dollars argument. And they might think, well, parlay bets are becoming more popular. If we tax them at a higher rate, then okay, maybe I can live with that. So it's probably a concession to those lawmakers, but whether it makes a difference on the floor remains to be seen.
Yeah, we will see. I think we're going to get several versions of this. Other lawmakers have said they're putting forth a bill. Recall last year, too, that the bills, some were like, we're going to bring casino, horse racing, sports betting, everything, because Georgia is currently a state that really just has the lottery, and that's it. I think the consensus that I've been hearing is the most efficient way to do this is to keep it very clean and just have sports betting be the subject of what they're doing. So yeah, we shall see. The tricky part about Georgia, one, if it's a constitutional amendment, you're going to need a 2/3 majority of each chamber passing it, which is a high threshold to get across. 2, their session is 40 work days, and we've already used about 5 of them. The good thing for SB 172, it is already out of committee. It managed to do that this week, so it's already got a leg up on everybody, but tough timing on that one.
Yeah, I think the really important thing is a unified approach there. Everyone needs to decide we're either going with a constitutional amendment or we're not. Because if there's arguments, it's going to take too long and nothing will work again.
You really think that they're going to have a unified approach on this?
I never said I think that they will. I think they should.
Fair enough. All right. You wrote about this one before you switched over. Missouri. Talk about lack of a unified front. Thank God Denny Hoskins is term limited. So this is the last year that he will be rolling out his VLT legislation and demanding the VLTs get involved and rolling it out with names like, I think it's like the Remembering Our Heroes Education Act of 2024. It's basically like, unless you hate veterans, you're going to vote for this is the name of the bill. But I turn it over to you to get the more technical version of this for the audience.
Yeah, I prefer your description. I think that was great.
Nailed it.
So yeah, we've got Denny Hoskins coming back with his VLT bill, which just so happens to have sports betting attached to it. Listeners might remember that this is the lawmaker who sort of filibusters and delays on every single bill that includes sports betting but doesn't include VLTs. And he's vowed that he will always make those bills fail. As Jess alluded to, this is his last opportunities to do that. So if we don't get sports betting this year, then maybe the next time round might be a bit more successful. But there is another bill as well, SB 852, and this is from Senator Tony Lukemeyer, who has previously filed. He did last year's, yeah. So it's the two main competitors vying for their the respective sports betting bill. And this would allow the riverboat casinos in Missouri to partner with up to 3 different operators. There would be, I think, a 12% tax rate on it. However, there will be the staggered promo credit deductions that we've seen rolled out in other states, where you can deduct 100% of your promos for the first year, and then 25% is knocked off each year until I think year 5, where there's no promo deductions. And I think that's becoming a little bit more popular a lot amongst lawmakers, rather than just giving operators a free pass on promo deductions forever. So that's a little rundown of the 2 respective bills. Again, there's going to be arguments, there's going to be debates, and what it actually looks
people
like.
Reading from a Reagan biography for 3 hours. So, I mean, I want to know how it ends. Does he get elected president? So we'll see what happens with that one. And then, Charlie, you flagged this. She hasn't filed the bill yet, but I'm going to get to follow the Utah legislature this year, aren't I?
Absolutely, yeah. This is my favorite, and I think everyone should put their weight behind this one, because I think I called this one the most ambitious bill in the US in 2024. Yeah, there's a bill in Utah for a lottery, I think. Which, I mean, good luck to him.
I think I don't know the percentage of the state that is LDS, that is Mormon, but it's the majority, I believe. So they're not the biggest fans of that. We will track that whenever it does get dropped. We will continue to track everything over on SBC Americas. Right now, not as many bills have dropped. We've seen a lot of lobbying, though. Going back to our new writer, Justin Byers, he had a great rundown of the Indiana iCasino market that the Indiana Gaming Commission commissioned a report from Spectrum on. Also, the rundown on the campaign from the Sports Betting Alliance, which is a group of the 4 of the major operators. They're pushing to try and get online casino in New York. Good luck with that one. It's going to be a challenge. Online casino, we'll talk a lot about it. I don't know how much action we'll see. If there is, certainly you will find it on SBC Americas, and you will hear it on iGaming Daily. So keep tuning in each and every day for the latest from news on the gambling sites around the world.
SBC Media.